This is the 8-9 Combo.
This is the 8-9 Combo. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones. The 2025 edition of the Six Nation Championship is here, mate. The rugby year begins.
How's it, Brett? I noticed that you're playing around with a red cricket ball today.
It's a new pink one, in fact.
Oh, pink. Yeah. What is your position on that? Do you have a favorite color of ball in play?
As I got older, white balls were definitely easier to see than red. I never got to face a pink ball. So,
okay.
Yeah,
This is going to be sort of a modified cricket rugby pod today.
won't be the last time cricket's mentioned. Yeah.
Well, I'm very silly. I'm not really a cricket aficionado. I mean, all my time in cricket was spent playing silly mid on, silly mid off, whatever. They would call me like closer and closer because I didn't have any fear, but I had no skill. And I would just absorb the ball on my shin.
You were just there to save runs, were you?
Yeah, just be a human block. That's horrible.
Fair. Very fair, very fair. Our wonderful Six Nations preview chat with the Telegraph's Charlie Morgan is coming up right after this. And this was a seriously great chat, mate. The ideal way, I think, to prepare for a major international tournament.
Yeah, we asked Charlie to dig into the annals of medieval theology and philology, and he scoured to talk about sins and we tried to understand the Six Nations, what sins these teams are trapped and mired in, and to what extent they could crawl their way out to redemption.
If indeed they can, yes. It's a really interesting chat. It was a great theme to work into the preview, and I think it really worked well. So we really hope you enjoy it. Cheers and Jeers is back for 2025, but with a twist this year in that we won't always be jeering things because, we like to celebrate rugby, and we will leave it up to the jeerer whether they jeer or cheer. But I'm kicking off with cheers this week, and it is cheers for Ireland and Leinster hooker Dan Sheehan, who made a triumphant return from his 6-month layoff after an ACL injury, scored twice in Leinster's 36-12 bonus point win over the Stormers, which is probably your jeers. At the Aviva, round 10 of the ERC, earning Player of the Match award. Leinster's 14-game unbeaten streak continues. James Lowe back from a calf injury to boot. Pretty good display. They're going all right, aren't they, at the moment, Leinster?
Hard to beat. They've forgotten how to lose. Something that Warren Gatlin once said upon a time when his team was still winning. So interesting. If the people watch it, I watched every second, of course, of a Stormer match. Dan Sheehan got the Man of the Match award mostly for his triumphant return from injury, because there was a sequence that was absolute madness between him and Joe Dweba where they could not find Archias Neyman at the apex of his jump, but they could find each other. So it was hooker to hooker. It was the world record for hookers who overthrew to the hooker
to each other
behind the line out. And at some point, Leinster said, "Okay, Dan, you've come back, you're obviously carrying wonderfully, incredible rugby player, but your throwing's not up to stuff yet." So they just started doing tap and goes from everywhere. But they gave it to Dan Sheehan as
to do the carrying. Yeah.
Because that first one is brutal. And my cheer is going to be sort of a cheer, and it's to Archias Neyman himself, the great man, the Viking, for just shouting Afrikaans in the middle of the Stormers line-out calls when Joe Dweb was already struggling, and then Andre Hugo Venter came on. He was struggling.
It was unsportsmanlike.
Yes, one point the referee requested to the ref that he stop, and that was his complaint. He said, "That's not fair. This is not right." And the referee basically said, and we captured it because the microphone's on now, and explained everything, going, "I agree with you. It's a really terrible thing to do, but I don't know how to stop it
because I don't know what he's saying.
It doesn't seem right, but it's not really illegal." So sure.
Yeah. There you go. Charlie Morgan is up next, but first, a quick message, and that is, if you're listening to the 8-9 Combo via Spotify, via Apple Pods, or any of the podcast platforms, just very quickly hit subscribe right now. And if you're watching on YouTube, then hit the subscribe button real quick as well. You won't miss an episode, and the numbers climbing keeps us having great rugby chats each week. So go and do that now. Cool. So here we go then, straight into it. Our Six Nations preview with one of our favourite 8-9 guests, Charlie Morgan from the Telegraph. It was wonderful to launch the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast for 2025 last week with the chair of World Rugby, Brett Robinson. And it is truly excellent to get into the rugby year this week properly by turning our attention to the start of the Six Nations for 2025 with the most underappreciated former first-class wicketkeeper turned rugby writer we know, the Telegraph's Charlie Morgan. Welcome back, mate. How are you?
I'm very well. My cricket career is appreciated just about as much as it should be, which is not very much, and that is great. That's fine by me.
I like your career because it's nicely packaged for stats. You know, when you have 5 matches, everything is easy, and I've always thought 5 was one of the easiest ones to work with on division and multiplication. So I'm interested in the idea that you have exactly 1 catch behind the stumps per match. Did you? You can confess now.
Match.
Yeah, you can. Did you drop a few just to keep your perfect 1.0 average?
I did drop, not on purpose. I did drop one. Yeah. Do you know what? It was a Sky, and I didn't get a glove on it. So that's what you're dealing with here.
That's not a drop catch, mate. That's not a drop catch.
Yeah, that's what I argued. There's
a funny story. It's not a missed tackle if you don't get an.
If you don't get a hand on it, it's not a missed tackle. No way.
True. There's actually a funny story on it being 5 as well. You got that Darren Mooney. You got if you got 6 first-class games, you got a cap, and I got my cap after 5, and it was basically well done for sticking around this long, despite the shortcomings. So yeah, I think that was a kind of sympathy cap as well.
You had 1 big innings. You had 38 against somebody. Who was it?
Yeah, Lancashire was dropped 2 or 3 times during that as well. I guess there was some. I think I was in for. I think I faced about over 100 balls. So there must have been some convincing balls within that. But yeah, no, the stats do it justice absolutely perfectly. I'm not.
Let me tell you, if I managed 5 first-class games and I averaged 10 and took 1 catch, I would be telling everyone.
He does. Charlie's walking around Twickenham and Richmond. Just that's all he talks about. He goes into every pub and tries to drink for free and say, "Go away."
It's the elaboration that's the issue. Yeah.
So the serious question that I have about both you guys, because Brett's a cricketer as well, is my observation from hanging around Brett is that he watches rugby and AFL and league and whatever. Almost like a cricketer in that he's looking for space in the infinite variance of the labyrinth of cricket fielding, which is, moving the pieces around the board. It's way more complicated than other sports. And so when he looks at defense of Laurie Fisher, I feel like he's going there. And then Charlie, I've been reading your column now with that eye as well. I was like, so is he doing this sort of a hybrid cricket brain? Do you guys find that you look at things differently than the rugby guys?
Well, I think with there's obviously the technical bits of cricket, and with amazing timing, my 4-year-old has started having a little bit of interest in getting little balls thrown at him this weekend, which is quite cool. But I think the psychology of it is what is so fascinating to me. The psychology of batting, you could feel $1 million and nick off for nothing, and actually still feel pretty sweet because you were going okay, and then the opposite could happen. You could grind out, a horrible 50, and then that could be your key to sort of rolling on. So I think that's kind of the psychology of it is how I kind of is what I guess has helped me kind of frame watching sports. But there's loads of technical aspects to it. So I was never a captain. So I was never sort of setting fields. I was just barking at people, telling them to get me the ball, basically, throw me the ball. I wasn't tinkering.
It's an interesting question though, Harry, and I have to admit I'd not thought about it. I did captain a few sides, and I spent a lot of my time in the slip cordon as well, Charlie. So our view of the game is very much it's happening in front of us. So yes, you did sort of get an idea of where space was, and if we want that guy straight, what's the effect for that shot left or right? So you do sort of think about it like that, but I'd never actually thought about that as a method of thinking about rugby defenses until you just told me about this 15 minutes ago, and now I sort of can't stop thinking about it.
Well, no, when you go really technical on defense shapes, I feel like that's where you go, is the moving the pieces around laterally and vertically, if that makes sense. And instead of gain line, collision, dominance, whatever, I think it's more about the placement. I don't know, and I think it's interesting to have different sport aspects. I mean, I've read a lot about athletes that play different sports and then bring that footwork, and I suppose also, Brett, for you, a wicketkeeper at number 9, that's a perfect fit, right? Because you guys are always just yapping.
No, look, I tried. I did wicketkeep for a little bit, and I gave it up very quickly because my hamstrings did not cope. During the game, they were fine. It was the 3 days afterwards. No, I gave my gear away to ensure that I couldn't wicketkeep anymore.
So I don't think cricket has a sin bin. Is that correct? You guys don't have a sin bin.
No.
So rugby has a sin bin, and I was thinking about talking with you guys about sin. I don't really believe in sin in my own personal life that much. I mean,
don't you?
No, I think there's things you shouldn't do, and
you think you
should. You're probably going to do them, and you have to say you're sorry quickly and fight it. Be honorable. I haven't done the 3 H's or H's, as they say in New South Wales and parts of Northern England, but so I guess that's probably my sins. But I was thinking about sin in a rugby sense, like the team that won't exit, or like yesterday Stormers, persisting in throwing from the hooker to the hooker. Like Joseph Dweba had a secret pact with Dan Sheehan and said, I'm just going to keep gunning it to you with overthrows. I mean, that's cardinal sin territory. But we know those: the greed, the wrath, the sloth, the envy, the lust, the gluttony, the pride. So I was thinking about chatting about these 6 nations, these old traditional 6 nations, steeped in history in the midst of time, and we know rugby is crime pardoned. So what do you think afflicts these teams in a long-term basis? What sin are they trying to work their way out of and propitiate?
Well, can we knock envy off quickly and just put Wales right there? Because
I had that for Scotland, because Scotland just looks around the world and says, "Oh, I'd like Tuipulotu. Oh, I'd like Diwan van der Merwe."
I think Wales right now are just looking everywhere, going, "Oh, that'd be good. Oh, that'd be good. Could we do that? What about that?"
I see that point. I thought Scotland was coveting their neighbours' wives.
I had Scotland. I had Scotland as well, but then I did all of these with an absolute awareness that I'm going to be that fans are going to be pretty pissed off with me over the next couple of months from various countries. So I kind of made my peace. But we can call it envy. We can call it opportunism with selection policy. And the interesting one was Fergus Burke, most recent one. He's not been amazingly convincing for Saracens, and that he's been helped to the kind of Scotland squad by Adam Hastings' injury, but that is quite an opportunistic one, it feels like, for Scotland. And also kind of highlight something we're going to get into later, that Finn Russell is quite a distance ahead of anybody else as far as first choice.
It's funny, when Fergus Burke announced his move, it was always framed in terms of it wasn't framed in terms of he's going to play for Saracens. It was, he's going to the UK to play for Scotland, and he's going to play for Saracens on the way. There was never any question about whether he might play for England. It was always going to be Scotland. So it was interesting.
That came up. He did media last week, I think, and he said that England. It would have been sexed up in the headline and maybe in how it was editorialized. But he said that the Scotland style of play suited him more, which does make sense, like in a totally fair way. The England pecking order with fly halves is really interesting because they've got 3 that are miles ahead of the rest, and all of those are in this group of 17 that have central contracts. So they are sort of pigeonholed away, and then you're thinking, right, well, is there a 4th? And it's Charlie Atkinson, who's played who started the last 2 England A games but isn't starting all the time for Gloucester because there's Gareth Anscombe there who isn't getting in the Wales squad. So the 4th choice England fly half is an interesting little kind of situation in itself. But that's one of the preamble is all about selection, isn't it? And that was one of the sort of more interesting subplots.
So So yeah, Charlie and I see some envy working, some jealousy for Scotland, but they're good at it. They're efficient with their envy. I mean, what it separates them from England is England's spending £1 billion on I don't know what, but they don't seem to be able to repatriate and move people and migrate them from around the world. When you would think England would have that would have the ability to bring you to London, you know. And who's talking these guys to going into Edinburgh in the winter and leave their vineyards, near Stellenbosch. So I think something is really efficient about the Scottish. Maybe behind the scenes, Gregor Townsend is really persuasive.
Maybe they just lean into the envy and they're just at peace with it and they just carry on. All right, envy is their motivation.
There was on a kind of like semi-serious note. So Ben White has become their first choice 10. He's a fantastic player. He was an England under-20 captain, came through at Leicester, left Leicester under Steve Borthwick, actually. It was quite interesting. But I remember speaking to him last year. I think all of these tournaments merge into one, but I spoke to him last year and said, because that was a serious, either or. You've got Scottish family that you've come through, you've captained England under-20. He would have been a prime candidate to be in this shake-up now because there's a bit of a gap under Danny Kerr and Ben Youngs, and Alex Mitchell's taken it, but it wasn't necessarily completely a sure thing. And he said, well, Gregor Townsend was in contact with me, sending me clips of my games on WhatsApp, like going through little bits of that. And it's thinking, there's that care element. There is, I think, with what you're saying there's a sense that Scotland really are as close to the sum of their parts as any team at the minute, because they kind of have to be.
Great way of putting it.
And that is probably also why Sione Tuipulotu going down hurts them so much, because he's been such a big part of it.
That's true. If you have Tuipulotu go down, Jack Dempsey injured, Chookman, Duhan, I mean, it really becomes a very different team. So I suppose the danger of that is the what ifs. Can you just keep doing that? Can you keep finding these people? Duhan van der Merwe, just under the quality of what's needed for a Lekkerback. You bring him up to there, and he fits your, steamrolling tank wing. But that's a tough one. I do think the Scottish people are maybe more welcoming, and it's a big deal. Like if you're a Piers Schoolman and you're walking around, and maybe in England it's harder because Eddie churned through so many players, and now you're not sure about Borthwick. Gregor's been there, so he can really recruit you.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they have to keep going down. Like the pool is not particularly wide and deep in Scotland.
Yeah, but Glasgow's
which is why envy fits. Yeah, and Glasgow's going fantastically and have got a really, really good squad. But I mean, I suddenly feel like you mentioned Sione Tuipulotu goes down. What happens if Jack Dempsey goes down? I feel like it's a good time to be a 25-year-old Australian with Scottish heritage this year.
Yeah, their envy will kick in. They'll find someone else from Melbourne. How catastrophic do you think that is, Charlie? Like Sione dropping down?
Yeah, quite. Just because the breadth of his kind of assets is so impressive. Like you talk about players that play at the line, and a lot of them, like how threatening really are they as runners, as well as being able to play those deft passes. He is both hugely. An example of someone that they might have to sort of swap in. So Rory Hutchinson's been playing absolutely beautifully for Saints. He's just such a lovely distributor, and he makes a lot of what Saints do so well tick. He isn't as explosive or as threatening with ball in hand as Tuipulotu, because who is, Yeah. He's an absolutely elite 12 in the sense that 12s have become so prominent at first receiver and so important at that first phase, playing those short passes or playing those pullbacks. That shape with Finn Russell out the back and Hugh Jones coming short and Tuipulotu at first receiver it's just almost like hilarious how much that works now. And they toyed with England at that Murrayfield game, didn't they? And for the first try, and yeah, Finn Russell as bait out the back. England just desperate to get hold of Finn Russell and missing Hugh Jones through the middle from Tuipulotu's pass. So
I did think Sione makes Finn better. I think
Mm.
we always focus on
doubt.
does he make 13 better? I think he makes the inside better. And also there was a delicious prospect on the Lions of having basically an all Scottish back line.
Yeah.
And even the Irish were like, maybe with Ringrose.
Yeah, it's fair.
So let's jump to England. Your brief. Yeah, what do you have for the sin of England? And everyone's gonna go all
Greed.
of them.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
No, actually, is it greed or is it gluttony? They just have so much of everything.
Yeah. Is avarice is the greed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that hoarding. Yeah, you're right.
Is that how people in Birmingham say whoring?
maybe. No comment. Their thing is these late lapses and this tactical uncertainty, which you can say, how do you blend all these clubs into one, which is the sort of the opposite of the problem that they can't do what Scotland and to a lesser extent Wales can do.
The French,
hone in.
Yeah.
So it's this uncertainty, which I think you just have to have a coaching team that is so clear. And this was Borthwick's what his manifesto promised when he started was I'm going to be so clear on tactics. I'm going to be so clear on the selection. And you did hear that players really knew their place as far as in the pecking order and things like that. But on the field, it's not really manifested that way, I don't think. And the late lapses, that just how alarmingly consistent they are. Maybe throw a bit of what's the angle one, Roth. Maybe throw a bit of that in with England as well, just to kind of how inaccurate that they feel. It feels a bit like they sort of build up and become a little bit hot-headed, not necessarily through sort of like swinging punches way, but just throwing a pass that isn't quite there, or conceding a dumb penalty here or there that just unravels momentum massively. They've
replaced the most likable captain in world rugby and brought in the most unlikable to a lot of people, who was full of wrath, who gets penalized sometimes. I mean, Maro Itoje is a wonderful player, one of the generational players, and I have much respect for him. But he does give away penalties sometimes at the most unfortunate times for a captain.
I am writing a piece on this very thing next week with some stats that I found interesting, but also some testimonies from people a bit sort of shared the pitch with Itoje about his sort of demeanor and what I won't at the risk of being really self-indulgent, I won't spoil it, but there's this sort of what has
you can subscribe to the Telegraph by going to
what has come up is this kind of dichotomy between how he can turn it on and turn it off as far as his manner and talking to people, referees especially. And somebody likened that to Ardy Surveyor and Sia Khaleesi, and just how their sort of interactions on the pitch, discussions on the pitch, which is really, really important. So that's going to be a super interesting subplot of England's campaign.
Yeah, and there is that thing, sometimes players are more disciplined when they are the ones that have to go talk to the ref. It's more sheepish and bashful when you have to go talk. When you're the captain, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I did that thing.
It's good. What I will say is I was at Saracens Bristol, and Itoje was fantastic for 70 minutes because he spent 10 minutes off the pitch for a yellow card where he got pinged. Matthew Carley at the end of the sequence of play gave the penalty finally, and he said, Maro, you have committed 3 penalties in this sequence, all of them within 5 meters of the line. That's a yellow card. And it was Carly's just quite a funny manner anyway, but it was just the way it sort of went.
It's just one sequence, though.
That one and that one. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I think for players like, no, it was all one sequence. That's just one. I would just make you blow the whistle.
Take your pick which one it's for. Yeah.
I would like to subscribe to Telegraph, Brett, by the way, just to Charlie's articles. Charlie, can we do that? Can you have a special one? We only read yours. It's
would be above my pay grade to work that out.
Okay.
Telegraph.co.uk/Charlie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, for me it was gluttony.
£4.99.
I think gluttony because I was at what's that place called? Hawksmoor Spitalfields, that big steak place. And the table next to me was 4 guys from the RFU, and I picked that up only because they were gossiping. That's another sin, and they were gossiping about men who had a very particular sound in the name, like Felix X. I started hearing the X, and then I started hearing Cheka, and then it was like Borthwick kick. So I was looking, and I kept kind of going, and then my companion got up to go to the WC. And then, they were, checking her out. And then they were really letting loose. And I started thinking, these are all RFU guys on a ticket. And they're about 1,000 pounds into this meal. I mean, there was just like Chateaubriand and bone marrow seeping out of their pores. And I thought, RFU, this is how they spend the money. It's a Thursday night and they are going large. So that's my picture of England is they like the misery. They like all the hype and the punishment and the self-misery. Yeah. And I just don't think they know how to stop getting – they're stuck in this melodrama, even at who's going to be our fly-off and why. And I just think they kind of like it. That's my theory.
Can I just throw in there that you left out that little anecdote, the part where you said on our chat group, Checker is definitely going to be the next England coach?
Oh, yeah, I may have said that.
Yeah, you did.
but then the Tigers got moored.
Yes,
so it might have changed.
They did.
I don't know if one game changes things. Sorry.
The point about England and their 10s is, and going back to that point you made earlier, Charlie, that they've got three fly halves centrally contracted. Haven't they only got 1 hooker and 2 scrum halves? I think.
Yeah, I don't think any of the tight heads are.
So you got 3 10s contracted and no tight heads.
They hate taking extra 9s to tournaments.
Wow.
I hate that.
God, that's like there's one of your cardinal sins of rugby. You haven't got a tight head prop contract.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
It was sort of framed as though it can get up to 25. So play for these contracts, but with who they're giving them out to straight away.
X number of tests.
Reasonably obvious who they trusted and who they didn't. Yeah. So,
is it like Ireland? Does the RFU take on the majority of the payment of the salary?
No, it's not too different to what they're paid. If they played, I think it's probably going to end up being worth around 10 tests. So you just have that guaranteed per year.
100 grand or so? Or?
Yeah, I think maybe. Yeah, I should know that, but I don't off the top of my head. But it's kind of it's just where that would be, subject to you playing tests. It's not anymore. It's there, and then they have more control over the medical stuff and things like that. And it's been sort of heralded as a victory of this new kind of big partnership. But in fact, everybody sort of knows, even England, that the proof is going to be in how it actually works when things get going and when these tricky situations crop up.
Or how things work when it's not going. Yeah. Is hubris a deadly sin?
Speaking of hubris, what do you think about Ireland, guys?
I was waiting for the end of that question.
It could have been the French too. We'll go Ireland for me.
So many of these sins just go sort of bedfellows, right? So I had Ireland as. I remember Tom Savage, who's 3 Red Kings, who's just super, super insightful on the game. It was about 18 months ago, I think he sort of wrote that Ireland are going to have to get used to being the most analysed side in the world, and that's because of Leinster, because they play so often with Leinster, and they are going to have to find ways to keep that fresh. And so I've given them sloth out of that being a risk, out of refreshing not being a risk, not refreshing being a risk. Sorry. So if they don't, and I actually think they do have enough to win this one to become the first team ever to win 3 outright championships. But if they don't, it will maybe because they haven't regenerated enough in certain positions and stylistically.
Which then leads into, I had them pegged for pride, and are they game to actually recognise that there are areas of their game they need to change, or do they think they still know the way?
Yeah, to me, it's such a microcosm of the country as a whole. I mean, Ireland built the entire, poetry, liturgy, self-consciousness on being poor, being deprived, or being famine, the mistreatment. And then, lately they've been very rich. And so South Dublin's having to struggle with, what kind of lads are they producing nowadays, and how do they talk and how do they act? And then you have this Irish rugby team that's by far the most successful sports team of any sport. And they're having to sort of handle being the front runners or favorites. It's weird. I mean, this is not a position that Irish poets and scholars and playwrights have been in, and so I think they're having to struggle with that. And I don't know. I think some of these law changes, and we'll talk about this, are designed to sort of curb Ireland maybe a little bit, but they've invented so many intricate systems. My worry for them is, because they're so Leinsterized and Ninaberized, is they might turn in a tough game, the Six Nations, go, okay, where's Archia Sneyman? Where's Geordie Barrett? Because I mean, that's an amazing reason why Leinster is unbeaten, is they got the perfect toolkit to turn to. I think better than Toulouse on the bench. I mean, if you bring Geordie Barrett, Sneyman, and Slimani on, you've kind of solved three big problems.
I totally mugged myself with the Champions Cup predictions. I thought Bristol and Bath would be the best placed Premiership sides, and they were two of them and Exeter were the only ones that went out, pretty much. But they both got a crack at Leinster, and those games were in the balance until Sneyman just rocked up off the bench and started doing mad stuff, and Barrett was just classy throughout all of those games.
Sounds like a throwback to your thoughts on Joseph Suaalii, which we only just highlighted 2 weeks ago in the Best Of show.
Yeah, I watched Geordie Barrett now his whole career. I think the Hamburglar burglar. But I never
been trite about that. Do you remember?
But he's always that guy for me.
Statement.
Because the story was so stupid. Like, you just walk up as you're sitting in someone's, on a couch having a hamburger.
I made bad choices, and I need to be better.
But I never focused on how well he cleans rucks. I mean, that's like having a lock. He is a lock. And so, you've got a lock out there in the middle of nowhere cleaning rucks, and everyone else is just normal backs going, what are you doing?
Yeah. Does it better than Scott. There's no red cards in that department so far.
Yeah, Geordie might be a better ruck cleaner than Scott if you factor in cards. So let's move to the French. This is very interesting for me.
French.
Them only having one championship since 2022. 2010. They got one since 2010, though, right? Yeah.
They won in 2022, which was sort of an asterisk year. And then it's gluttony. It's gluttony. Yeah.
They're running a squad of 75, and they're leaving half of them at home in July because they can, I suppose. Of course it's gluttony.
Interesting.
So French. We do what we want.
I was going with sloth, and because I don't think that they subscribe to the modern methods of fitness and conditioning and weight room. I always think so. I think England's stronger. I think
could also fit
better loading. I think they train to fatigue. I think when Wales has a camp, they always come out fitter than the French. Something about the French where they have weird ideas about fitness.
What's the French equivalent of KFC drive-through?
Just bread. Just all the bread. All the really nice, amazing bread. Maybe.
Oh, well.
Or maybe, foie gras. They have some pretty funky, lovely pâtés and things like that.
Pan au raisin. Yeah.
What I did find out on my reading about gluttony was that Thomas Aquinas found out 5 different types of it, which is great. So eating too expensively, eating too daintily, which is my favorite, eating too much, classic, eating too soon, and eating too eagerly. So I guess
so cool. Eating too soon. What does that mean?
All of those have got Latin names. Eating too daintily is great. Like,
how do you eat that?
My dog does that. My dog will not eat like a dog. She just really nibbles things. I want her to just grab it, to be like a wolf. I've never thought about gluttony being too dainty.
You want your dog to eat like a number 8.
yeah. And she likes sushi, which is weird too. So I don't know. That's a good one. And I never thought about gluttony and all that. I know that satiation is a big thing, and gluttony is mostly about not knowing that you're actually full. You just keep plowing through. It tastes good.
Oh, we got a squad of 75. Oh, I didn't realise. I thought we'd only pick 40.
They are gluttons for choice at, say, number 9. I mean, look at how many good scrum offs there are in France right now. I think literally, we always say this person would walk into a team. I think like Garrick would walk into most squads, even New Zealand. I mean, that will.
Aaron's been amazing for Toulouse. Yeah, they're loaded.
Is it Luku or Lusu? How do you pronounce that?
I've been pronouncing it Luku. I don't know. I don't know whether that's right or not.
I think it's Lusu. I don't know. Le Capitan. I mean, they've got really some great.
If you're listening or watching in France and we have buggered this up royally, you can let us know on the socials or on the comments right here.
They're 3 or 4 deep everywhere, Charlie, except for Locke, I think. But they're really, really deep.
Yeah, I was just sort of trying to. I'm on my sort of carb load of kind of info about all of these squads, trying to figure out where and about to sort of fail miserably in predicting where they're all going to come. But the French, they've lost Flamand. That Toulouse-Leicester game was weird. Leicester was kind of sloppier than I think people are saying. They gave away a few penalties, and Toulouse and Leicester had a reason to quit because they were already through, and Toulouse just absolutely tore them apart. Flamand was he's progressed gradually, I think, over the last few years. Just his poise on the ball is awesome, and he was on a different planet. He was absolutely immense, and he's injured for one, if not the first 2 weeks. They've got Wales in the first week, so that might not hurt them too badly. They're coming to Twickenham for round 2, so that could be more of a pinch point for them. Their back 5 is quite interesting, and people I really respect the opinion of, sort of speaking about how maybe that balance of that back 5 might be a bit tricky. I think they're going to play. There's talk of them playing Ruma at lock, and then they to sort of give them a line-out option, because they've lost Olivon to a knee injury, and when he was there, they just had they love this big. This big lock who sort of, and they balance it around that, don't they? So it's Miafu at the minute, who's just this total gain line monster, but you can't lift him. So they've had 2 back rows and a lock jumping, and now without Olivon, who was absolutely phenomenal at that, they've now maybe having a look at another way of balancing things. They've got Oscar Jegu, who's from La Rochelle, who got a cap in Argentina, and he's coming through, and I think he was in he was in the group of 23 that they kept back from top 14 stuff, so he looks likely to play against Wales. But they have these, I guess it plays into the gluttony stuff if you're going to criticize it, but they have these phenomenal youngsters coming through because they won those back-to-back Junior World Cups, and now these guys are coming through, and because they play a ton of top 14 stuff as well, because there are the 14 top flight clubs, and those games are pretty physical, pretty kind of taxing.
They'd be coming in with 40 or 50 games under their belt too, wouldn't they?
Crazy. They're playing in the Junior World Cup with 40 or 50 games. Some of them, it's just nuts. So it's, I guess, a little bit of the same with England, if not even more, of just how do you merge this into a super effective combination. The answer certainly in their backline is picking basically the guts of the Toulouse backline with the Bordeaux lads on the wings who have been just electric. And
tries for fun.
That's fed into that whole narrative of Toulouse fans of like, we're better than France, Hugo should be the coach. I don't think that the evidence supports that. I think, anytime you pull together the Lions, they have a better record than the individual home nations do, playing Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. So even if you don't have the cohesion, if you can plug exactly what you need into Toulouse, and you have Jack Willis and you have Chokobaris, I mean, there is a way that actually that you can get there, but at the test level, you can do it better. I mean, Penaud, Louis Bielberry, Antonio, Aldrit, those are really different players than they have at Toulouse, and they are better. Penaud's 6 tries tells you it's better. Let's move on to Wales, which is a sad story. Every time I talk about Wales,
haven't we covered them? Haven't we covered them already?
Sad. I don't know. Mine is an angry coach, so I think it's Roth.
Okay, I had pride sloth combo I would have
Everything.
Roth. Yeah. Just
Gatlin is so passive aggressive. He's always seething underneath it all with his little Kiwi ways. I don't like it. I'm not enjoying it, and I think that there's no way forward. I have people that say the opposite and say, no, see out the storm. There's a bright day coming, and I just go, oh, I don't know if he doesn't exude belief anymore.
That's why I've got an envy, because they are looking around the world saying anything around the world, even Australia is in a better position than us right now.
That's harsh.
Tell me I'm wrong, Bush fans.
They sort of, what was a little bit of a red flag to me is that they had this opportunity to, and you can maybe have a bit too much of a good thing when you're loading out of one club, but they could have gone 9, 10, 12 or 13 from Gloucester, and they left out 2 of those. They've picked Thomas Williams, who's fantastic scrum half, and then they could have gone Anscombe at fly half and didn't. And they've got Dan Edwards and Ben Thomas, fly half, both unproven. Ben Thomas probably more of a 12, but we'll see how that goes. And then they didn't pick Max Llewellyn at all, who's a big sort of strapping centre who
having a great season,
just carving up. And it's the Premiership, and there's that caveat obviously that nobody seems to be particularly robust in defence of the Premiership, but you have that understanding, and they sort of overlook that. And that seemed like quite a conscious decision.
But he looked like a test type center. Like Stuart McCloskey type. He looks like one of those guys, like where he's a big brute, but also smart. Yeah, I don't know where Warren's rationale made no sense to me. And we're going young, and then we got the oldest winger, and it didn't make any sense.
As I pointed out on the socials the other week, he's picked 4 Williams and 4 Thomases, but there's no Evanses, no Joneses, no Jenkins. I mean, that's concerning for Wales. No Davies.
So Charlie is Charlie Felix Darrington Morgan, which covers a lot of the Six Nations. Not the French, I guess, but Morgan's Welsh, no?
Yeah, my dad's Welsh. He wasn't born there though, so my kids can't play for Wales if that ever comes up. So that's a shame for them. But yeah, they're very much. Apart from France and Italy,
that's the guy.
That'd be sweet. Yeah, everywhere.
I think Jack Morgan is so good, and it's so sad to watch someone be that good in a terrible team. It just seems wasted. Let's move on to Italy.
It's the
home of sin.
If it's anything other than lust, you two haven't thought about this at all.
It's lust. Their names sound like
it's lust.
Carnal.
Of course, it's
fornication.
I'm
waiting for an Italian player to be called fornicato or something.
they're less lusty than they were under Crowley. Italy's were just.
There's a bit of substance to modern Italy lust right now. Isn't
there used to be who needs to kick, and now they're like, no, we actually exit.
Yeah.
Others told them to kick.
They're good. They're a good team to watch now. It's good fun watching Italy.
Okay, another observation is that the top 3 teams England, France, and Ireland have fly-off controversies. We're not really sure who the 10 is, mostly because Marcus might play 15. But what do you think there, Charlie? What's the situation? And do you think by the end of this Six Nations, those 3 teams will have a clear answer to Jalabert versus Intermac and all that?
Maybe not. I'm not sure. I think the sort of noises coming out of Ireland are that it's going to be horses for courses, and it might well be that they split those as far as starts. That's probably the most. I was going to say it's the most contentious one. It's not as contentious. England is just nuts. France.
But what does Jack Crowley got to do? He seems to me.
I know
so
you
good.
you really like. I guess they see. Prendergast as a really sharp guy operating a system. That would be my only kind of thought of it, having not seen a ton of Prendergast at senior level until those Bristol Bath games. Against Bristol, I just thought he had some he's super young and he's super slight as well. But he's had so much poise on the ball, had a bit of acceleration about him that I didn't appreciate.
He's very quick.
Before, really quick, and just has that kind of Bath got at him probably a bit and made Leinster's phase play quite scruffy as a result. And I think England will have to take that lesson. There's a real but I think it's a crap term, isn't it? But I think his ceiling with that composure already and being able to kind of organize those systems and then also throwing in that athleticism that he's got, I think they see a really high ceiling there. I've always loved Crowley's swagger and his toughness, and I think I wrote a piece about Harry Byrne coming to join Bristol, and just the top of it was just like life must come at you pretty fast if you're an Irish 10, because Harry Byrne was fast tracked and seemingly one of the Sexton successors, and then there's these two out of nowhere. So that I think it's kind of going to be we'll see, but it's that, and I'm absolutely infamous for my crap NFL analogies, but it's kind of, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none sort of vibe, isn't it? Or is that not true anymore? I don't know. So
no, that's true. In the NFL, you could have a wildcat quarterback, but if you have a quarterback controversy, you're dead. You just can get no flow. The receivers don't know what to be. I think there's an apt analogy there in that Wither Ireland, are they going to play differently because of some rule shifts and changes and the way it'll be refereed on decoy runners and so forth? And also durability. I mean, I always thought a guy like Finn Russell, Andre Pollard, Dan Bigger, they had long careers because they were able to take the hits. And my worry, so I don't know if Johnny Sexton trying to pick like for like. Johnny Sexton always said he had shoulders like a snake. So maybe he looks at Pendergrass and goes, "That's my guy." Yeah. Crowley's a proper footballer. He can take a hit. He could play 12, an Owen Farrell type.
Crowley stands out to me, and it's the Munster link is the obvious one. Crowley to me reminds me so much of Conor Murray. He's like, here I am. I'm a good footballer. I'm not from Leinster, but you're still going to notice me.
Yeah.
And the funny part of that now is that he could easily get overlooked by some kid from Leinster, which just has all the great hallmarks of a great Queensland conspiracy in Australia.
It might be starting Leinster 9-10 and then a off the bench the Munster 9-10.
Munster 21-22.
Conor Murray was saying, people said he lost a step. He goes, I never had a step, so it doesn't matter. I love how Conor Murray knows exactly what he is and plays so well within his limitations. I think Prendergast has got these physical skill attributes that they're attracted to. So I think it's fascinating to see where the Ireland goes with on a defensive standpoint. I listened to what they think about the Nienaber blitz in the Irish camp, and I think that's going to transfer. The Felix thing didn't fit with England, though. So moving on to England, do you think that...
Well, sorry, just before you do that, and we've just inadvertently done it, Kieran Frawley's the forgotten man in all this.
Oh, I didn't forget him, that fucker. Why did you get a miss in the Champions Cup twice and then hit both in Durban?
Absolutely nailed the one. Or both of them. And I want to say we spoke about it, but when the grubber to kind of set up the field position for that for the drop goal, was ice cold.
And it was a big decision too, because all the Irish groaned and said, "No, don't kick it away." And then, perfect.
The test of time.
And the celebration when he was doing that thing. Oh no, wasn't it?
Sorry, England. You were going to say about England.
Oh, England. So we talk about attack because rugby is such an attack obsessed. All our stats, we have 17 stats for attack, and we have tackles made, which is weird because in other sports like a wicket keeper, a bowler, a goalkeeper in football, central forward, they're like superstars. NBA has an all defensive team that they name, and you want to be on it. You know who the all-time steals are. So I don't know. I think Marcus, Finn Smith, and George Ford. Is there a defensive leader amongst those, or is it all about creating tries?
Finn Smith.
Who's a defensive 10 of the Premiership this year?
Yeah, nobody really. Finn Smith bangs people. There's Crowley and Finn Smith are fairly similarly kind of robust and punchy. Marcus Smith has, which fits this role that he may or may not have, and it may or may not be from starting. But he's become noticeably really reliable at one-on-one tackles in sort of scramble situations. He's super brave in those situations. The big blight for George Ford's. I mean, George Ford was maybe the best fly half in the Six Nations a year ago, and it's just nuts how quickly that has all changed. And this is kind of at the heart of why these discussions become sort of culture wars and are just so violent in the England one.
The game can move glacially slow until suddenly it's bang and you're just behind.
Yeah. And if you get George Ford is a brilliant speaker. Actually, they all, especially Finn Smith and George Ford, are really kind of considered guys to speak to. And George Ford, if you get him in the right move, he will sort of really give you enough space to read between the lines. And I just remember a few kind of quotes where he's thrown out and he's gone, look, people don't appreciate that. People sort of get wowed by these highlight reel moments, but it's about, like, our position is making this team really tick and getting the most out of them and winning those little moments and things like that. And he's always been excellent at that. That said, the missed tackle, and it's on Mark Talea, and I've brought this up a few times, and it's a missed tackle on Mark Talea isn't like a missed tackle on anybody else. But he missed a tackle on Mark Talea that, brought about that England loss that shifted the whole narrative of England's autumn, and put them in a kind of catch-up situation more than they maybe would have done. Made it so that he was getting booed when he was getting ready to come off the bench. Like, it's so tricky. There's a fascinating interview with Fraser Dingwall, who's Finn Smith's shares the same midfield with Finn Smith at Saints, and he sort of spoke about the differences between playing with Marcus Smith and Finn Smith. And one thing that really stood out for me was that you're saying with Marcus Smith, he can make something happen with, he's thinking in terms of him being able to make something happen with maybe one other player or on his own, whereas Finn Smith is always thinking of how am I breaking down this defense with a whole back line. And I think that is
right.
That's such a good point. And I think it's the difference between Test rugby winning and just highlights. I mean, Marcus has always the best highlights, but I think sometimes players like that sometimes keep their colleagues, their teammates guessing. I don't know what he's doing. And it was such a carry clean game. You got to clean. Where's the cleaner? And sometimes he makes breaks without any regard to that. There was some interesting moments this weekend of people finding their support. And I just thought, Connor Murray's a good example of always knowing where he is on the field. I don't know. My big thing with England on this issue is I don't know, because I think the 10 is an important cog in a blitz defense, is I don't think Borthwick knows what a blitz defense is. I heard him talking about it, and he said, well, we don't use the word blitz speed, but I know what you mean. So, we like line speed. I go, no, a blitz is specifically leaving the line. It's someone departing. It's a Gary Ringrose shooting and missing a tackle. Peter Septatoy getting far to collect.
It's a deliberate disconnection.
It's deranging the whole field on purpose to funnel you into big hits and to be able to isolate you or just throw off so that Finn Russell sees only green in his, he doesn't know where to throw. And I just thought, Borthwick, I don't know if you've sat down with Felix and understood it. So I worry about his whole setup of his back line and the faulty premise.
The
handover document has not landed.
Yeah.
No. And that was obvious, I think, from the autumn. And I think that's going to probably lead to, that sounds like it's going to lead to sort of tempering that. They have to coach something that they know how to coach. And it seemed fairly obvious that Joel Abd there were nuance of it that even with Felix Jones on gardening leave, that there weren't sort of cracks that were becoming bigger because there wasn't that sort of expert knowledge of it, and it was highlighted. Poor Ollie Slightholme, who has come in he did make his debut in New Zealand, but he was sort of his first run of starts were over the autumn. He defends in a totally different way at Saints, and in a position where there is all the scrutiny as a winger. Yeah. There were some high profile sort of errors, but the damage had been done sort of further. I've written about
further infield,
I've written about this before, but the sort of big stark illustration of it was the second try they conceded against Italy in the Six Nations. So the second try they conceded in the whole year looks so similar to the first try they conceded against Japan. So the penultimate try they conceded in the year, it's they chase a kick and there are 4 or 5 defenders marking one player on the blind side. So they've already made the cardinal error, and it's the wingers and the people trying to blitz they're blitzing on sand. It's effectively.
Yeah. Sand's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
So really quickly, jumping to the French 10s, my personal outlier, unpopular position, I think Jalabert is a better 10 than Intermac. And I think Intermac doesn't do the things the 10s do when he's on the field with Dupont. I think Jalabert has a little more swagger and could have a plan B when the greatest player of all time is shut down, as he was in the quarterfinal. There wasn't any plan B because no one else could lead the team. Ramos sometimes, but that's too far away. So I like Jalabert. I think Jalabert is a real fly-off. What do you think?
Jalabert, I don't think it's going to be Jalabert because he was back with Bordeaux. I like that. Perhaps it is dependent on Dupont so much of what France is. But I just like how I think maybe you probably think about those 3 as a 3, Dupont, Intermac and Ramos as a spine of the back line. And then you've got a little bit of everything. You've got Ramos who will take on that creativity. When Dupont isn't there, you've got Dupont being the creative spark, and you've got Intermac maybe just being really measured about things and actually run it. And then that understanding he shares with Dupont is really quite good. They do those little chips over to each other.
He's like the on-field logistician. Like, we need to be over here so that we can play like this now. Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to get onto it later, but the where Jalabert is super special and where he might become even more prominent is if there are going to be more periods of sort of broken field stuff. He is basically, if you have him in the backfield, you're laughing. You're going to pick time.
And he's finding a way to get Penaud and Biarri in space, and I think that's super important because I think that's one of the French edges in this tournament. I think they have speed edges on the wide compared to Ireland.
The thing I think about with France and their 10s, I keep thinking of the same theme, and it's continuity with change. It always seems to be, and some of it's forced by injury, obviously, in the last 12 or 18 months. But like, we've got a different 10 now. We're going to play this way. We're going to do a different 10 now. We're going to play a different way again, and we've got now we're going to play a fullback at 10.
And Ramos makes that possible. By the way, he's such a good player. Of a guy who doesn't get talked enough about how good he is and what he can do on the field.
Probably should think about the actual tournament itself to some degree before we try and wrap this up. What do you think stands out as a crucial game already, Charlie?
Oh, you can pick
and
them
I'm
out
not even necessarily talking about this weekend.
You can pick them out for everybody, as always. So England tournament probably gets defined by hosting Scotland, and if they lose to Scotland for a 5th consecutive time, that's brutal for them. Scotland's tournament would be defined at Murrayfield when they host Ireland. I think the whole, and then Wales and Italy have a scrap in Rome, which Italy should probably win. But the sort of, it's round 4, I think, is Ireland, France in Dublin.
And
depending on who, Flamont should be back, but I still think it's just stuck in my head a little bit, that back 5 of that France pack without Olivant. I know he wasn't. He was sort of more of a fringe more on the fringes during the autumn. But I don't look at that pack and see it going to Dublin and winning.
It's a really interesting game though, because you'd sort of expect that they'd be both undefeated by then, and I know there's no final in the Six Nations, but that feels like it would be a proper final.
No, to me, that's how I've organized the tournament, in that two teams have to have 5 wins, because there's no excuses now, France and Ireland. 2 teams have to have 3. They want to have 4, but they have to have 3, Scotland, England. And 2 teams have to have 1. And that doesn't work, because you have 18 wins. You only get whatever it is, 14 something. So 12. So you have proper head-to-heads there. The England, Scotland, the Ireland, France, and the wooden spoon. And at this point, I don't know on all 3 of those. I really think if I had to bet on them, I wouldn't want to, and I would have to split or something, because I don't know. I don't know how Ireland and France stack up by the time they get there. Injuries will be a factor.
The variables will be a thing. Where's the major upset, do you think?
Wales hosting England at the end is slippery for England if they are.
Yeah, it's got banana skin written all over it, doesn't it?
If the doom cycle keeps spinning, I was really cocky before the autumn about going like, guys, like, whatever happens this autumn, the narrative's going to move on for England, because it'll either be, geez, they need to kind of rip it all up and start again, or look like they're finally getting momentum. And their 3 tight defeats was exactly the sort of, no, it hasn't moved on. That's what keeps happening. So I was wrong on that as well. But yeah, I think surely this campaign moves things on, because you're right. If they don't get 3 wins, that's a real problem.
That's full support of the board territory.
That's what I heard at Spitalfields. I heard that he has to get 4. I'll tell you my shocking prediction of an upset, Brett. You're not going to believe this. England beats Scotland.
It's fair.
That's a huge upset nowadays in the Calcutta Cup.
Yeah, that would be.
There's something very awkward about Scotland for England. I think every team does have an awkward opponent. I mean, for French, it's Italy. Actually, it's weird.
It's the game they don't think about.
They have one team that just really, and I think England's that way for Ireland. I think if you're really honest about it and you look at it and you see what happened a year ago, it could happen very similarly. Yeah, with Maro Toje as captain and just saying, we're going to just destroy your rock. We're just going to mess everything up. You don't even have to play well. Just mess it up.
The 3, if you take the last 3 England-Ireland games, so you had, I might have gaffed that now. I've set this up, but had, certainly in a recent sequence of England-Ireland games, obviously England beat them at Twickenham. Then they had a red card on the Grand Slam, sort of what was meant to be a Grand Slam parade, and it got edgy in Dublin, even though England were down to 14.
It was not comfortable.
And then you had Charlie Ewels getting sent off after two minutes, and Ireland had to go to the last quarter and they pulled away in the end. But you're right. I had that. It's like
they're a matchup.
They're a matchup.
Yeah. Good one. That's a good one. Who then is under most pressure this weekend to kick things off? Because I feel like it's Borthwick. If things go south for England this weekend, he's gonna have trouble pulling that narrative back.
Yeah, he's the only coach under fire, no?
Well, if you count Gatland, I guess.
But Gatland's sitting back there going, "You'd like stick under pressure."
He has mysterious powers over the Welsh board. I don't know. I think Borthwick has had that, fatal support in November. The RFU saying you have our full support. I don't like that.
Well, Borthwick said he had the board support. He offered that up himself.
No, I don't like it. I think he's under severe pressure with his inability to hang on to or recruit proper assistant coaches. I think the switch in captaincy shows something. I would not want to be Borthwick right now. On the other hand, I could also see a scenario where England flips the script.
Yep. Yeah. What happens if England won 4 games?
A lot of those losses were against the All Blacks, Springboks. I mean, they had a murderer's row. Okay, the Australia thing probably hurt, but I mean, who plays New Zealand that many times in a year and expects to be in a positive side? There's no way.
Well, Australia, stupidly.
Yeah, that's your whole history.
Famously.
I know what we'll do. We'll play the All Blacks a lot.
Yeah. Let's just set our future with New Zealand and let's play them every second week for the next 25 years.
Okay, the other big thing we got going on.
How hard can it be?
Yeah. Other thing we got to be going on is these shifts and emphases, these meetings, these secret meetings, these referee conclaves. Sometimes they take the form of an actual shift about, you can throw it crooked, but not too crooked if it's contested, but not too much contested. But there's also where they just say, we're going to look closer at scrumming straight. We're going to look closer at crossing lines. And we're going to look closer at the bubble of shepherds and guards.
I bet they don't look at scrumming straight.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a throwback. At the start of the 2016 Super Rugby season, it's still a running joke now. This year we're going to crack down on scrum feeds. Oh, are you? Round 4. Forgotten about.
So that doesn't work. But the blocking, the lack of a blocking pod system, escorts, shepherds, guards, whatever, that had a huge effect on the Automation series.
Oh, yeah.
And Borthwick said so. And he said, we kind of had set up a lot of our plans around that. So now he has a big change. He could, if it's going to be smashed in the catch, maybe it's Freddie Stewart. Maybe it's not who he was thinking about before. So, Charlie, who do you think wins and loses under these various, scenarios, changes, and emphases? Like the less reload time, for example, the more naked kick catching situation, that kind of thing.
I think teams that have coaches that think flexibly and teams that train a lot of the sort of it still makes my skin crawl. This, but do you know how trendy rugby chaos became as a sort of term? Like the team that trains in that sort of manner, and you're bang on. So I don't think anybody could have really foreseen just how stringent refs got on that. It was obvious from the first 2 box kicks of the England-New Zealand game. It was Angus Gardner just go access, and
exactly.
It changed the game.
Exactly.
It changed the game.
It did.
And it was great because those gloves just were done. It really annoys me when there is something that becomes a thing in the professional game that a grassroots ref would look at and go, what is that?
Right.
Yeah,
really, it's NFL blocking. Yeah.
It's like the escorting was stupid, that glove thing, and I'm so glad they've taken it off because it was just bizarre. The one attacking player that could just be in front of the nine's right foot, just nuts, blocking a guy charging down, how? And he's all right as long as he doesn't move. It's just genuinely crazy, like a proper deformity of the professional game.
Offside.
Yeah.
That hurts Ireland though, doesn't it? With Hugo Keenan as 15 versus the more solid 15s.
I think Keenan's in that red card game at Twickenham. He won loads of stuff in the air. He won loads of stuff in the air against Freddie Stewart. It was Freddie Stewart, peak of Freddie Stewart's powers. 2022, Six Nations, and he could just come off an amazing autumn and was the kind of go-to guy for England, as he probably will be again going back to Dublin. But and Keenan's good there, super committed. But it's the teams that can feed speed off broken field stuff. So you're right to bring up France. They don't need rucks to feed their wingers because they can offload. The Stade de France is now super excited about grubber kicks through to Biarritz. All of a sudden, those. I just thought, well, changing a tune, guys. Come on, kicking sexy again.
Yeah,
kicking is sexy when performed well. The cross kick is really cool. It's a visually cool thing. Joseph Suali getting that grab in the air,
tries is sexy,
flipping behind. The tries that come from that level of complexity, I think it's interesting. I love watching Finn Russell and no-look Mani Lubbock kick. I think it's brilliant looking. Yeah. And I think that's also where teams like Scotland could fare well. What about the easier life for the nine? Is that a pro DuPont thing? Is that more Ben Earl? Like who's going to benefit from this clearing out of the base and having more space?
Nines, obviously. I think this is just one of the great rule changes in the history of rugby.
But who does that favor in this tournament? Which kind of 9 feeds off that more?
I do.
Dupont.
Yeah.
Dupont does because all of a sudden he'll go, I've got 2 extra meters of space in front of me that I didn't have last year, and that is just an option for him to do something in those 2 meters, whether it is throw a dummy and go himself, whether it's to link with whoever it is coming off the back of the scrum,
8-9 combo,
8-9 combo, whether it's finding Intermac or Jalabert or Ramos out wide. He can make decisions in those 2 meters of space that's now available to him that will bring plenty of defenses undone. He's the big winner in this.
It also helps him a bit on his not as great pass as some of the other 9s. You know,
Yep.
It doesn't have to be as pinpoint. Yeah,
because he's got that extra half second. Yeah, it's absolutely for him.
What about go ahead.
So Saracens have been sort of Tom Willis is a guy that might get a bit of game time for England this Six Nations, and he's been at Saracens alternating with Ben Earl. So Ben Earl's been wearing 7 but going off the base quite a lot because he's those first 3 meters he's really quick. You might see you might see and do you know what was really cool about this these law changes was I thought England showed themselves to be quite rigid in their thinking, to be honest, about it all, and it came to a sort of head in the South Africa game. And in that week at the Springboks press conference, somebody had asked Tony Brown about these rule changes, and rather than sort of moaning like England did, he said, well, it's going to be a more dynamic game, like happy days.
Yeah.
And that was that. And you just thought, oh, cool, you're not moaning about a law change. That's quite refreshing.
Well, the thinking around
but Tony Brown would see a rule change like that and go, how good. Yeah. We're going to have more room to play here.
Yeah. And so would Rossi, because he loves gaming systems and finding weird anomalies. And the thought in the Bok camp around these changes were, no matter what their intention was, it doesn't matter because how they actually play out is different. And so, for example, on this 9 space thing, the 9 defensively are pulled back. And so people aren't even really putting the 9 there. It's not going to get there anyway. So they pull 9 back into the midfield and they shift. Sometimes they hide their 10 better. And so in some ways, it'll make defenses stronger. So I do think there's ways to play off that. The other thing is the chaos theory, like you said, is wrong. But there's a structure of kick return. And so it might look chaotic. But for years, All Blacks did this. So it was a setup. And they had channels, and they always had people on both sides. And I think it's interesting now, if you can claim that kick and then release the ball immediately, you've got so many channels now.
Yeah, we talked about it through the November test, but I think we'll see it more in the Six Nations. I think as much as we joke about it, I think the best 8-9 combos in the Six Nations could have an absolute field day with this, because if Jamison Gibson Park and Kalen Doris can isolate a 9 back in defence and create a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2 type situation with their blind winger, I think 8-9s off the back is going to be a proper thing this year.
Yeah, and Doris is a real ball playing 8 too.
Absolutely is. Yeah. And that's where France will miss Oliver, funnily enough.
Yeah. Speaking of blindside wings, so I was thinking of how South Africa had Colby rocking up at scrum half. Darcy Graham, absolutely right for that for Scotland as well. Yeah. He's so explosive in and around the ruck, and just if the more they can get him. Yeah, I mean, imagine him in that first sort of 2 meters around a scrum, like that's, and also just how much that throws off defenses. It gives scope for a bit of kind of lateral thinking, which is
exactly. Who's got the dominant scrum between Ireland and France?
Oh, good question.
Ireland.
I just feel like it could go that way, but Porter's being pinged again.
Yeah. Sheen coming back, I think, helps Ireland.
There's a reason Antonio is there. There's a reason they've Francis is. There's a reason they've recalled Slimani. Potentially they just know that area needs to be super solid.
That's a very interesting subplot of Slimani being recruited to Dublin and then now being called back into the French club.
Awesome.
I just think that's where you see the small margins between these two teams. I do think there's a whisper around in the French of like, if they get to the point where they fail again, and you start thinking, wait, if you watch the commentary at a Champions Cup game, you would think that 20 of the greatest players who ever played the game are in the French setup. Why are there not more trophies? Why is there not more heat on Galtier?
And Six Nations is the one tournament a year they care about, isn't it? So we're being told.
It's the crown. I mean, it's the crown jewels.
Yeah. It's a good, like you just said it before. France have got one title in 15 years. So questions will be asked, surely.
I don't know if there is pressure, but I wonder why. Why there's not pressure?
Yeah. Why isn't there? Yeah.
For another day.
It's fair. This has been really, really interesting. Really interesting.
I'm ready for the games to start.
We've lost all semblance of time.
Wait, when is the first game? Who plays the first match?
It's a Friday one.
France and Wales on Friday night.
Interesting. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, that's breakfast rugby for me. Big fan.
The best.
Big fan. 7:15 a.m. kickoff. More of that, please,
mate. Whatever problems you're having in this time, imagine Lions and all the guys having to wake up at strange times. It's all kind of revenge.
Welcome to my world, mate. Mate, this has been awesome. Fantastic. This has been really, really good, Charlie. It's meaty, it's substantive, it's
sinful
nonsense at times, but
some nonsense.
Really enjoyed the chat as always, mate. Thank you so much for giving us some time in the lead up to what is going to be an intriguing Six Nations tournament.
Thanks so much for having me.
With the Lions backdrop too, Charlie. Everyone's looking at.
We haven't even.
That's the line.
That's the line. We haven't even got into that subplot. So
it's always in the backdrop.
We'll save that for the Six Nations post-mortem.
I promise to keep a tally of the amount of Lions teams I pick from now until when the actual.
Every game.
Hi.
Can you promise me that you will commit to writing how the Lions will definitely win 2-1?
Yeah,
because your history of prediction, mate. I'm sorry to say it.
No, I just want there to be something on that decider. The two that we can get into this. I mean, we can get
that's true.
We will absolutely do a Six Nations post-mortem and we'll get into this properly.
Yeah, we'll see.
Fantastic,
soon,
mate. Thanks as always.
No worries at all.
This is the 8-9 combo with Brett McKay and Harry Jones, and that, mate, was a wonderful way to get back into rugby for 2025 with Charlie Morgan. What a Six Nations tournament this year promises to be.
Love Charlie, and I feel like we should all get honorary theology degrees from Oxford now, and we learned something very valuable about 5 types of gluttony. Oh my gosh, I didn't know about that.
That was the big takeaway.
Eating too soon, eating too daintily, or whatever. That was bizarre.
Yeah, eating too quickly.
Yeah, too soon.
Eating too daintily. I still can't get my head around that. I don't quite understand. What grabbed you from Charlie's commentary?
That some of the teams are still in shift mode and other teams are fully loaded and ready to go. So I think it's interesting to see. I mean, obviously England shipped way too many points in the end of year tour. I mean, giving up 42 to Australia, 29 to the Box, and
20 odd to New Zealand.
Yeah, it was too much. So you would think that that's going to be their area where if they go to Ireland and then France, and if they ship 30, 40 points, they're pretty much out of the tournament. And then Borthwick staring down the barrel of a gun because if he loses to Scotland, he might be gone.
He might not have the full support of the board anymore.
Right. The thing about support of the board is it's there, like you said, poverty, whatever, going broke. It's like it's there, and then boom.
And suddenly it's not. Yeah.
Hello,
yeah.
Checker, or hello, somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. It was really interesting. It was a really interesting chat, and it was going to be really, really, really good. Our big reveal for 2025 is that the weekly guest program has moved to midweek, as you'll have noticed last week with World Rugby Chair Brett Robinson, and again this week with Charlie Morgan. And starting next week, we'll kick off the rugby week with the weekend wrap, which may or may not be called the weekend wrap still, looking back at all the big games and the big results each weekend. It's the perfect time to start that is round 1 of the Six Nations. So that will be out late Sunday, early Monday, depending on where you are in the rugby world, which we're looking forward to, mate. It'll be actually great to get into that early next week.
If you guys out there have names, I believe in the wisdom of crowds, especially with comedy. Just throw us some really cool.
I've just right now
like
thought of
names.
weekend post-mortem, sort of blend the two. That could fit. But what that does mean is that we'll roll what was games of the week from last year into the weekly episode, which means Six Nations round 1, France v Wales on Friday night in Paris, Scotland v Italy at Murrayfield on Saturday, Ireland v England in Dublin on Saturday. What is the game of the week there, and why is it Ireland v England?
Each round really does have a clear game of the round, actually. Like right now, you can sit here and know it because of the symmetry of the tournament with each one, it being stacked, like you've said before, in tiers. So we actually know that England versus Ireland really hurts Ireland's. They're done. Whereas England can afford to lose to Ireland and beat the French at home in Twickenham. So I think that first one right up to bat with Simon Easterby, and it's always tricky when you get a team from someone, even if you've been around him, it's still different, And so, you have this old hand, Borthwick, who seems very cheerful for being on the chopping block, and you have Easterby going. At some point, he wakes up on the match day and goes, "Oh, this is it."
Yeah. No, I think you're right. It's going to be a great game. I'm a little bit intrigued by France Wales, and I will almost certainly watch that live. As I mentioned in the show, that's breakfast rugby for me on Saturday morning, so I will be all over that. Ireland England's just gonna be a ripping game, though.
Are we allowed to say that we know the team now because time has elapsed? Is that okay?
Yes, time has elapsed since we spoke to Charlie. So the England team is out.
You haven't even seen the England team.
I just saw it.
Both Curry boys.
Yes, which was long rumored.
So you've got a Curry, and an Earl. That is a very smallish back three, loose forward trio.
Which means back row is going to be interesting. The breakdown contest is going to be
attacking the breakdown. It can go your way or not, depending on whether pilfers and killing the ball, putting hands on the ball is the big issue, or if it counter rucks the issue, Ireland will have the upper. And then there's another thing, which is the 6-2, and you have clearly Freddie Stewart saying he's modified his technique. He can handle the no escorts, and Marcus Smith has his team running the team.
We will see how that goes. The Harry Index. We're going to discuss this Where is it up to this week?
Exquisitely, infallibly subjective, and yet mysteriously and beautifully objective. The Harry Index had a little shift to top, and it was contentious. And I got to say, it's because I just keep thinking that Leinster added a little bit more than Toulouse did. So we know when they went head-to-head, last time was 15-all, and there was no try scored, and it required extra time and the depth of Toulouse to overcome Leinster. And I just think that adding Archie Snyman, Jordy Barrett, and Slimani with the Nienaber defense bedded in another year, it just feels like if it was tough to score 15 points in normal time against Leinster last year, I kind of think it might be worse. The other thing is Toulouse is showing a bit of cracks, and sometimes that's just because they've had so much success. So the Harry Index this week had Leinster resume top, and then Toulouse slipping down. The Blues take profit from Bordeaux's. The Wine Boys took a slip. They lost. And Toulon is at number 5, looking ominous, I got to say. And they dispatched La Rochelle kind of with ease. And then you kind of go down that list, and you have the lurking Bulls with 2 games in hand in the IRC, having dispatched all championship challenge champions rugby and said, no, we're just going to go ahead and try to win the IRC. Lurking there, if Leinster doesn't close the deal again in the Champions Cup, what if they dry again? And then going down the list, I believe the Sharks have slipped in at number 10, and then we have this mob between 7, 8, and 9 that, to tell you the truth, the Harry Index is confused.
It certainly is, because you've said between 7 and 10 you've got lots of teams. You've got more teams than there are spaces. You've got Glasgow, Bath, Claremont / Bayonne, and then the Sharks at 10. I've still got an issue with I can't believe you've maintained the Blues in the top 4 all summer without them playing.
It's hard, isn't it?
I don't.
The Harry Index is inscrutable, and its methods, although infallible and tried and tested, sometimes they are, for us mortals, they are difficult to understand. I beseech them to explain them to me.
Do you understand them?
Nah, I go bow at the altar of the Harry Index and nothing happens.
The concept that a team can increase its standing in the index despite having not played a game for 6 months, that is quite something. Anyway, that's good. We're going to go through that each week, and it will be interesting to see how things change as Super Rugby kicks off, as League One in Japan starts getting into their season.
The Wild Knights have been capturing
Wild
some
Knights, unbeaten already. Still, they lost the final last year, so I reckon they've lost maybe 2 games in the last 18 months, and one of them happened to be a final.
Very good team, but you're only allowed to put three foreign players on the field. Yeah, so it's a bit. If they could just change that, I think Wild Knights could creep into the top 15.
Oh, if they could change that, there would be a mass exodus of players from the Southern Hemisphere to Japan. They just would. But, mate, that, I think, wraps up a huge episode of the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast. And our sincere thanks to Charlie Morgan for getting our minds into the Six Nations as well as he did. Don't forget to be sure to find and follow the 8-9 Combo on Twitter and on YouTube and now on Blue Sky as well to keep up with all our movements. Leave us a rating or a review wherever you can and share us as far and as wide as you can as well, if you don't mind. Harry and I remain on the socials in our usual places as well, at Harry Baldy Jones, at BMC Sport, as you can see right here and there. This is the 8-9 Combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realise you needed in a rugby podcast. Sean Maloney's ready to go again. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones, and we will be back in your ears next week.
Come sin with us.
Here goes Jones with another bruising run. He links up with McKay, who pops back to Jones. They can't. They won't. They will. What a try. The Dream Team Combo go in again.